You ready to film another exciting episode of Real Good at Doing Stuff?
I can't wait.
Gotta be more exciting for Tuesday.
I can't wait.
Okay, good. There we go. All right, today on Real Good at Doing Stuff, we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We're going to talk about billet motors. Before we get started, a couple of you guys most people really like the intros to this channel, apparently, because that's what half the comments are about, but there's a couple that do not, and they're too long and whatnot. Too bad. They're going to stay that way. If you want short attention span theater, go somewhere else. This is my channel. I do it how I want to. It's different. I'm not trying to be like other YouTube channels. It is what it is. If you don't like it, that's fine. Just move on. All right, billet. In drag racing, a lot of times we use billet when we need to make tons and tons of power. It's extremely expensive and it involves tons of machining. And what a billet is essentially a kind of a directionless forging. This starts off as a billet of solid aluminum, which is essentially a forging. And then we machine away the stuff that we don't need and end up with, in this case, a block, right? And in this case, the caps are aluminum as well, even though they're anodized or hard-coated, they're also aluminum. Probably a different material, I don't know for sure. But they're aluminum, and you got a great big chunk of money sitting here. But for high power applications, there's no way around it. And actually, in the long run, in a lot of cases, in my opinion, it's cheaper. By the time you break a couple cast blocks, that gets expensive too, right? And a lot of times, if you do this once, it's one and done, and you can race and race and race and not have to worry about turning it up as long as your tune-up's acceptable, and you can just keep on running and run for years, you know. And in this case, it's an energy block. We use a lot of their stuff, real nice stuff, made in the US and A. So that's the block. It has liners in it, just like a cast aluminum block would have, pretty much same deal. We got needle roller bearings, or cam bearings, and we don't always do that, but in some cases we do, and that's what's in this thing. There's advantages and disadvantages to doing that. One of the advantages is you don't have to oil the camshaft anymore, because it's the race of this bearing here, the backside of it, plugs off the oil hole. No oil. This is oiled entirely by splash oiling off the crankshaft. No pressurized oiling, so that kind of helps pump up the mains a little bit and the rods. All right, okay, crankshaft. In this case, same thing, billet. This is a Cali's billet crankshaft. As you can see, it's super shiny and whatnot. It's been rim polished. And also in this case, it's 8 counterweight. What that means is there's a lot of times in the middle here on a domestic V8 crankshaft, there is no counterweights in this section, but over the years people found out that it was stronger if you put them in here. It's a little heavier but stronger, kind of like a diesel crankshaft. There's a counterweight on every rod throw. So that's the way most of your high powered crankshafts are done nowadays. Nowadays we're kind of in the golden age of that stuff, because you can actually get some cheaper cranks that are not made in the USA, but you can get them because those guys overseas actually do stuff, and anyhow, you can get these cranks for relatively inexpensive prices that are 8 counterweight, which is crazy, but because it didn't used to always be that way. All right, rods, R&Rs. These are also billet. In this particular case, because of the power level of this motor, it's kind of a Hemi style. It uses a bigger rod bolt, a 12 millimeter rod bolt. These things pull to 125 foot-pounds. Got a great big old wrist pin in here. This is a heavy duty rod. This is not what goes in your LS. These are R&Rs. I've been using R&Rs pretty much my entire career. So lately there's been people know who R&R are now, and it's harder for me to get rods because all you guys are buying them, but I've been buying them my whole career. They're great rods. Now they're made in Florida. Used to be made up north somewhere. Pistons. These are Ross. They are not billet. They are forged in this case. Nothing against billet pistons, but these are forged. As you can see, they're pretty dang trick every which way you can go. And they're coated. We use line-to-line coating. Brian at line-to-line coats a lot of our stuff. We use that on a lot of builds. This is no exception. One thing they use nowadays, or we use on these, is a pin button. And pin buttons have changed significantly over the years. It used to be we had a pin button that didn't have these locating gears on it, and we had to run an oil rail, support rail, to keep this from turning. Well, now with the invention of something that is kind of obvious, we don't have to do that anymore, and that saves some space and weight. This slides in here, and that keeps it, these ears keep it from turning when it's assembled. Pretty simple, but at the same time, it took somebody with a little bit of genius to apply it to a piston. But anyhow, that's how that works. Anyhow, we're going to start sticking some of this together, and then we'll go over the rest of the motor. In this case, this engine is an LDR deal. It's on gasoline, believe it or not. LDR is a class where you can get away with that longer because of the rules. You got to be super heavy and all this, that, and the other. One of these days, if I have my way, it's gonna be on alcohol. But right now it's on gasoline. This thing makes every bit, at least 3,500 horsepower. If you do the math on it, it makes tons of horsepower. That's a twin 88 millimeter turbos. And anyhow, let's kind of start putting the bottom end together, and then we'll talk about the top end. got the short block together, it's all ready to have some more attachments attached to it. If you're ever wondering how engine builders remain in tip-top physical condition, that's because those main studs pull at 170 pounds. So it's kind of like bench pressing a midget every time you torque one of those things. Yeah, that's our secret to peak male performance. Now for the heads, for the top end of this motor, first of all, lifters. In this case, they're BAMs. We use a lot of BAM lifters around here. Now they're actually located in Mooresville, North Carolina, believe it or not. And they generally, on something like this, they're a bushing style lifter, which means that there is no roller bearings inside there. It's a bushing, and that's works great on the big stream cylinder pressure stuff. They generally don't give any trouble. We had these checked out, but probably wasn't any point in it. They're 937s. The diameter is 937. If you're going to have a big nasty camshaft, you got to have big nasty lifters. So that's the idea behind that. Cylinder heads are Billet Energy, and when we get these, we modify them a little bit, change a couple things, especially in the exhaust area here. But these have been run quite a bit, and no cracks because they're Billet. That's how that works, and that's why we do that. In this case, the valves are Victory. They're a one-piece forging, and Victory's I think the only valve manufacturer that actually does that in-house, and that's done also in beautiful, scenic, historic Mooresville, North Carolina. Valve train, Jessel, Billet steel. Opening these turbo valves with 45 pounds of boost in them, and 9,000 RPM. It takes a lot of force, and aluminum is not even an option. So that we have to have a steel rocker on stuff like this. And generally speaking, like, we keep track of the needle, the replaceables in here, the roller bearings in the axle shaft, and sometimes out here on the tip we'll replace those if they need it. But they run and run and run. We don't hardly ever actually break a rocker. We just replace some bearing stuff and put them right back on and keep on trucking. Buy it once and be done with it. The shaft system, or the stands, is one piece Billet. Footnote, forgot to tell you about push rods. We're going to need these for the lifters to push open the rockers. We use on the high powered stuff, we use Manton. And you can see they're massive. They're 1/2 inch on the intake side, and the exhaust is, in this case, 9/16. One thing I would say is Manton is actually one of the best companies you'll ever work with. Like, they always deliver on time, and just incredible. But anyhow, big nasty push rods. And that's the basics of the top end of this deal. So I guess it's time to bolt this together, and that's going to require exactly 1 tube of extreme pressure lube.
way down. 80 foot-pounds. I talk the heads down. Extreme pressure loop. Exactly 1, 2. I talk the heads down.
All right, that's about enough of this nonsense for one day. You can see we got us a billet motorator ready to go to the racing track. We're gonna have a lot more billet stuff coming up soon. I'm probably gonna have a whole new series developed or dedicated to billet stuff as soon as I can find a intro song. But anyhow, that'll be coming up soon. In the meantime, like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. The merch is at HaroldEngine.com if you like to look super snazzy like me. And that's enough for today.